diving in now to the growth piece of the business, in your experience, what separates a brand that maybe kind of hits six figures and stagnates versus those that go on to push past kind of seven and eight figures on Amazon?
Yeah, so I think you need to have you need to be unique in one of three things, and that's either product, brand, or legacy on the Amazon platform specifically. And largely speaking, product turns to brand turns to legacy over a period of time. But in an ideal world, you have all three, but you need to have at least one of three. I think it's the biggest critiques of the Amazon marketplace is that from a sale perspective, it's perfectly competitive at times, and it's the job of a seller to kind of differentiate themselves from being perfectly competitive. So where can you not be homogenous with everyone else on the platform? And that really, when you whittle it down, is one of those three things. So what I mean by that on the product side, to kind of dig into that a little bit, it's have something that the rest of the market doesn't have. Now, again, going back 7-8 years ago, that was pretty simple. There weren't. It was an up and coming industry, and therefore, if you had a resistance band and a good supply chain, you could launch a resistance band, and with some half decent branding, you would rank well and you would sell well, and you'd have a really strong business selling resistance bands. I think if you tried to launch a resistance band company on Amazon today, you'd really struggle. The time was to do that 10 years ago. So I think you've got to have something unique. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't launch a resistance band full stop, but I think you'd have to run search volume analysis, dig into a niche within the niche in this day and age. It's either an emerging trending product that didn't exist, this time last year. So yeah, you've really got to kind of find that niche within the niche. So whilst I wouldn't ever try and rank for the keyword resistance band, which will have hundreds of thousands of searches a month over in the US, simply too competitive. You'd have to go into the red 5 years running on ad spend until you start organically ranking there. You have to have very deep pockets to make that worthwhile. Where there could still be a place for you is within, say, Pilates pink resistance bands, and you've got a really concerted demographic and kind of customer that you're going after, and you can own that space. And there might be 30 keywords that represent that space, all with anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 search volume. And as long as the goal isn't to come in and be ranked number one for resistance bands on the Amazon platform, that's fine. It all depends on how much search volume is going through that Amazon keyword, which is effectively the demand in the market, against how many suppliers are trying to play the game and rank for that keyword. And then are those suppliers there kitted out with a product that fits that search demand perfectly? And if not, there's probably a gap in the market to go and exploit. So you've got to find those niches and gaps, and that's either niching down from a niche, or it's a case of finding something new that didn't exist this time last year. And you see a lot of the time. I'll give you an example of last year, lion's mane. No one knew what lion's mane was as a supplement until it started going viral and doing the rounds on social media. The time was 18 months ago to go and launch lion's mane. And you look at some of the successful brands that have come out. That Space Goods has been a huge case study that did really well to capture that wave of traffic. The example of 2023 was ice baths. Again, getting into that early would have been huge, but if you go too late, you've missed the boat, because then you don't own that brand or legacy, so you're not the first there. Everyone's gone ahead of you. They've already built that review base, and then it becomes really difficult when those suppliers do start entering the market en masse. How do you then stand out on the platform, particularly once they've already got economies of scale, proof of concept achieved, and they can outcompete you on supply chain and therefore price at the end consumer? So that's product. Brand, I think, is a very different story. And I think that is number one. It's an absolute must have to have a very best in class Amazon listing and offering. And I'm constantly surprised at the amount of big brands that still don't have that. And that's a hole we're trying to plug as we speak. They allow their third-party distributors to compete over a buy box en masse. There's a huge free rider problem, and no one's got the authority to make the necessary changes to the listing, so they don't convert well. But they still do a very good job through a real intensity on brand equity away from the platform. And you're constantly seeing this dynamic on Amazon with challenger brands that play the Amazon branding game incredibly images are perfect, clearly A/B tested for click-through conversion, A plus brand story, all premium and spot on, but lacking the brand equity away from the platform. And you've also got these higher end brands, which their brand equity carries them through on the platform. And what I'm seeing a lot more of at the moment, and where we're doing a lot more business, is with those more household names, the bigger brands that do have the brand equity. We can come in and be their operational unit and arm to make sure that they're ticking the Amazon box as well. And then once you've got both, it's a real recipe for success on the platform. Gone off on a slight tangent there, but effectively, brand, product, or legacy has to be unique in one way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you're in a perfectly competitive market and it's impossible to make any real margin.